What's up there, Facebook Live? Sorry we pressed a couple of wrong buttons there, but welcome to tonight's stream. I am super excited to share with you what we have in office hours tonight, although it's probably not amongst the most exciting things in the world. I think it is incredibly important. My name is Chris Donaldson, and again, welcome to Office Hours. As you can see, we are here in my office, hence the name of the show. And the purpose of this entire broadcast and what we're doing here is to give you guys an opportunity to talk and learn about our business of real estate, about marketing, about business building, risk management, advertising, all of those things that go into the practice of being a real estate professional. So tonight's show, I want to make sure that you guys understand, has a big risk management element. But we're also going to tie in some marketing best practices and help you understand how to market and advertise better, whether you're after getting new clients or you're marketing people's properties, trying to find buyers and so on. And the reason for that is very simple. As you guys are filing in here, I want to make sure that you understand, if you are a licensed real estate salesperson or broker, especially right here at home in the state of Louisiana, I've got a big announcement and something really important that I need you guys to understand. On June 1st, there is a change in the enforcement to the advertising rules as we know them today. So if you're a professional marketer, as we know, right, you're a professional real estate agent, one of the things I want you guys to understand is, very simply, that we are held to a different standard, right? We have rules that we have to follow. We have advertising guidelines that we have to follow. And that's usually above and beyond the general public, because as a licensed real estate agent or broker, understand that we are professional advertisers and marketers. Well, as a reminder, in Louisiana, what happens is really pretty simple. And what that is advertising violations and fines by a regulatory body are handled a whole lot like a traffic ticket. So, in other words, if you have an advertising campaign, a for sale sign as an example, and it violates the rules, rather than going through the formal complaint process and having to issue a response and then having a hearing in front of the real estate commission, what we do here is called cite and fine. You get a certified letter in the mail that says, pay $75, you messed up, and you either pay the $75 because you messed up, or you can choose to go through the formal process. So obviously for a regular advertisement, like a for sale sign or a flyer or something like that, I want you guys to understand that $75 is the first offense, then $150, then a formal hearing. Here's what I want everybody to understand. In Louisiana, we're having some advertising issues. We've got folks in some areas that it's the same problem over and over again. Maybe it's the same agents or the same companies. So starting June 1st, the advertising rules aren't changing, but how our regulatory body is going to enforce them is changing. And so what I want you guys to understand is, starting on June 1st, that cite and fine, they'll get a ticket in the mail for violating an advertising rule. Your first offense goes from $75 to $250. Your second offense goes from $150 to $500. Your third offense is $1,000. $250, $500, $1,000 for each offense. So I want you guys to understand how incredibly scary, but also how incredibly important following the rules and being compliant when we advertise actually is. Now, here's the real kicker. Any brokers out there that are watching, I want to make sure that everybody understands this part. The broker has to match the fine of their salesperson. I want to say that again. The broker has to match the fine of their sponsored salesperson. So if you get an advertising violation, you're Joe Agent, and you get a $250 fine in the mail, guess what? So does your broker. And so now you owe $250, your broker owes $250. So what I want you guys to understand is tonight's show, we're going to talk about marketing and advertising in the world of being a compliant real estate agent. In other words, in a regulated industry like real estate, we have rules to follow. And so my goal tonight is to help you guys advertise better and also stay out of trouble. If you like the idea of advertising better and staying out of trouble, let me know below. Give me a like, give me a comment. Let me know you guys are understanding what we're saying here, because I'm going to help you guys advertise better and stay out of trouble. We're going to do both, because actually what I want you to understand is the regulations around advertising are not that complicated to follow, but the penalty for violating them is getting serious. I mean, $250 for your first offense right in the mail for forgetting something, on your for sale sign is pretty serious stuff. Now, if you're watching from around the country, every state has its own advertising regulations, and every state has its own mechanism for enforcement. But for my friends in my home state of Louisiana, this is a specific enforcement change starting on June 1st. So my goal here is to keep you guys out of trouble. So let's start with the basics, okay? The most important thing to understand is, by the Real Estate Commission's definition, what is advertising? So actually, I want to show you guys, the Real Estate Commission tells you right up front what advertising is as far as they're concerned, as far as the rules concerned, and also just so that you guys can understand the basic concept. Let's see if I can start flipping screens and really showing off here. Boom, there you go. So right here, this means anything that you're doing, verbally, written, print, including newspaper, magazine, mailings, brochures, business cards, for sale or lease signs, sign writers, promotional items, newsletters, telephone listings, auto signage, and then here's the big one, as well as internet, radio, and television advertisement. So I want you guys to understand that really the big thing here is that anything that you do that's based on prospecting for business or advertising a specific property, I want you guys to understand that is advertising, which means it's regulated by the Louisiana Real Estate Commission. And if you're watching in another state, likely your regulatory body too. So whether it's a business card, it's a for sale sign, it's a Craigslist ad, it's a for lease sign in the window, it's a sophisticated marketing campaign on Facebook, it's your website, it's a freaking magnet slapped on your car, all of those things are advertising. And guys, I want to make sure that when you're marketing and advertising that you're staying out of trouble so that you know what the rules are. So I'm going to talk specifically a little bit about Louisiana for a moment, since Louisiana is the one that's got the big regulatory crackdown going. And then after I review and remind you guys to stay out of trouble, what you need to do to stay out of trouble, rather, I'm actually going to give you a couple of really good, solid ways that you can advertise and show you how easy it is, especially in a digital landscape like here we are, Facebook Live, and how to stay out of regulatory trouble. So if that sounds good to you, that's a couple things that I want to do. So let me flip back over here. Let's see. I'm going to flip. Okay. So the number one thing I want to remind you guys, and the number one reason that this is coming into focus, is that there is a lot of misconception both in Louisiana and also nationwide about the concept of an independent contractor and the liability of a broker over an independent contractor. So I want to make sure that you guys understand that in Louisiana, it says right here in the rules that all advertisements should be submitted to the sponsoring broker for review and approval before being placed. And the reason for that is because the broker is responsible for the marketing and advertising. And the reason for that, at least in our home state, is the number one golden rule is that the name and telephone number of your broker is on everything. So I want to make sure that you guys understand that in our home state of Louisiana, that if you're advertising real estate, the phone number and the name of the brokerage have to be on everything. And it has to be conspicuous and discernible, which means it's obvious to the public. So if Joe rides by and sees your for sale sign, they're not confused between whether you work for X company or you're the company. They think you're the brokerage or they get confused. It's very important that you guys understand the number one rule to stay out of trouble, to keep from getting these fines, is to make sure that your broker's name and phone number right here are on absolutely everything. So I want to make sure that you guys understand that everything means everything. So if you're a sponsored salesperson, everything from a business card to your website to a Facebook page to the magnet on your car, if it can be construed as advertising, your broker's name and your broker's phone number has to be on absolutely everything. So that's the number one way to get in trouble, okay? The second is where we get into a little more into the weeds on advertising. And so when we're dealing with that, now we're looking at things like accuracy, okay? And things like accuracy when you're advertising means that you actually have the correct information. Things like square footage, things like the amenities, the address, all of that sort of information. It's incredibly important that your advertisements are accurate. So I want to make sure that you guys understand that when we're advertising, that having the correct information provided to us by the sellers and putting it out there in the public is incredibly important. So without further ado, since we're here on Facebook Live, I want to make sure that we talk about the most important piece, which is digital advertising. Advertising on the internet. I want you guys to understand that in the modern age, our rules and regulations have a lot of their roots. And it's not anybody's necessarily their fault or that they're behind the times, but the roots of the rules were written before you had things like Facebook Live or before you had Snapchat or before people were using Instagram to this level. So what I want you guys to understand is I want to focus on staying out of trouble in a digital marketing universe. That's where I want you guys to stay out of trouble, because that's actually the easiest place to stay in compliance, in my opinion. And it's also, and should be, the place you're doing most of your marketing and advertising. So what I want you guys to understand is, at least in our home state of Louisiana, we have specific rules about advertising online. And notice, broker's name, the city and state of the main broker's office, and regulatory jurisdiction of where the broker has a license. Okay? I want you to understand that has to be on every freaking page of your website. All of them. Or if it's anything but a website, then it has to be somewhere, like on the first or the last page of everything else. So I want you guys to understand, when we move to the internet, listen, what's the big fight out there? Once I put a property online, once I put it into the MLS, it's like I lose control of it, right? And it's scary. The idea of once I push that button, man, if I'm doing it correctly, not just Zillow and Realtor.com, but Homes.com and all these millions of portals, it's like I lose control of where my listings are going, where the data is going. So what I want you guys to understand is that the rules are simple. What you can control, you want to make sure that you have your proper regulatory disclosures on each and every page. So if you're marketing and advertising real estate and you have a website, Louisiana's law is very simple. Broker's name, broker's phone number, city and state, or basically the address of the broker's office, and then something like licensed in Louisiana, certified broker in Louisiana, something to that effect. If you're a salesperson, you also need to make sure that you include your name. So let's make sure that we understand, on your website, on every single solitary page, you're going to have broker's name and phone number, their address where the main office is located, that where they're licensed, so licensed in Louisiana, and if you're a salesperson, you need to have your name and information there too. The reason for that is pretty obvious, right? We want to make sure that the consumer knows they're on Chris's website and not Donaldson Brokerage's website. We want to know the difference, that when that consumer is clicking on these listings and these pictures and these portals and these funnels, these places where I might be directing them online and they don't even realize where I just brought them. The whole point of this is to make sure that at minimum, the consumer somewhere has a disclosure that knows, oh yeah, I'm still on Chris's website, or oh, I'm actually now on Chris's broker's website, or oh crap, now I'm on Zillow.com, or whatever the case may be. So I want to make sure that you guys understand that in a digital marketplace on your website, that's really, really easy. So as an example, I'll just use the Donaldson site as an example. Now, Donaldson obviously is not a real estate brokerage, okay? We're a school. We have slightly different rules. But if you look at the bottom of our site, all the way at the bottom, all of our regulatory mumbo jumbo is there, okay? If you look a little higher, there's our address and our phone number. And notice this is in a really long footer. There's reasons we have it done that way. But what I want you guys to understand is this footer is on every single page of our website. So we are compliant because no matter what, on every single page of our site, the information that we're required to have as a school is there. So that's the way you would want to set up your site if you were a real estate broker or a real estate agent, is you want to set it up, put it in your footer or put it in the header to where it's on every single page of your site. That's how you stay out of trouble. That's how you prevent yourself from getting in trouble, is putting it there and making sure it's on every single solitary page. So I want you guys to understand. Hey, thanks for stopping in, Jensen, by the way. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Malachi. It's good to see you guys. I'm going to give you all some likes on Facebook. So if you've got questions at any point, make sure to put them into the comments. And yes, Mike, I'm going to talk a little bit about lead generation. I'm going to talk about marketing and advertising and lead gen while staying out of trouble, because this rule change on June 1st is a big, or the enforcement change rather, is a big deal. And I want my agents, you guys, I want y'all to keep your hard-earned money. I don't want to see you paying fines to a regulatory body by making a mistake when you're advertising. So the second big piece here is social media marketing, social media advertising, really like everything else. How do I stay compliant if I'm marketing on Twitter? How do I stay compliant if I'm marketing on Facebook? How in the heck am I supposed to know what are the requirements on Instagram or Craigslist or you name it? And that's a really good question. And I would completely understand why that might be a little hard to understand, because listen, I mean, these rules were written before all that stuff existed. And that stuff's going to continue to change. There's going to be a new social network coming out tomorrow, likely, that we might use. And there's no way the rules can keep up with all of that. So what I want you guys to understand is that when you get into social media, when you get into the world of social media marketing, basically what we do in Louisiana is called the one-click away policy. At least that's how the regulators enforce it. And so what I want you guys to understand is one click away. The common misconception means, let's say that I'm marketing a new listing on Facebook. So I put together this beautiful ad. I've got my tagline. I've got my headline. I've got my pictures. I've got my information. And I'm like, man, I've got to have my broker's name, my broker's phone number, the branch office address, that I'm licensed in Louisiana. Am I supposed to like stick that in the ad? Does it have to be one of the pictures? Like, what in the world am I supposed to do? Really, really simple, you guys. Really simple. What one click away means is that obviously the purpose of a marketing piece or an ad is to drive the consumer somewhere. So number one, okay, those of you that are watching that have taken my classes or understand the principles of marketing, you're supposed to be driving the consumer somewhere. Otherwise, what are you doing with that ad? You just want it to be there? So when they click on it, wherever they go needs to include that regulatory information. So listen closely. Unless they change, which they shouldn't, I wouldn't expect that they would. So on your Facebook ad, you don't have to have all that crap. But wherever the consumer clicks on, wherever they're going to go, needs to have that information. So if I'm a real estate broker, where am I likely driving someone if I get them to click on my Facebook ad? Should be my website. And then what is going to be on my website? All that compliance, all that disclosure information so that it's all right there. I mean, let's use Twitter as an example. I love Twitter, by the way. Twitter, I'm there all the time. If anybody out there is monitoring on Twitter or watching on Twitter, use the hashtag office hours. Make sure you put your questions out there. I'm a big fan of Twitter. Well, guess what? Twitter, you get 140 characters, right? Well, my regulatory information would end up being the entire freaking tweet. So it would be impossible. So again, my tweet itself does not have to have all that compliance information, but wherever I drive, the consumer needs to have that compliance information. So here's the best practice. This is the best thing I can tell you guys in social media. In the profile of your social media page, whether it's your Facebook business page, because that's the one you should be using to advertise, right? Your Twitter profile, your Instagram profile, any social media, Snapchat profile, Musical.ly profile, YouTube, if you want to consider that social media, wherever you are, I want you guys to understand, in the profile, if you ever use that to prospect for business, to market your listings, in the profile of the social media account, that's where you put all that regulatory information. It's really simple. Because guess what? On everything that I ever produce, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, if it's from a business perspective and I'm marketing or advertising, you can always click on my profile and my regulatory and compliance information will be there. Does that make sense? Post below, guys. The few of you guys hanging in there, make sure to give me a like, give me a comment, tell me that makes sense. That's how you do it. So I'll show you guys. Again, I'll use an example. Give me a second while I pull it up here. I'll show you again Donaldson's Facebook page. And I will show you guys that as an example. Give me a moment. Let me pull this up for you fine folks. All right. Here's the Facebook page for our school. And what I want you guys to understand is, like just the other day, where we posted this amazing long-form commercial done by a news organization. Guys, if you haven't seen this, I'm going to just go ahead and let you guys know. You ought to check this video out. It's pretty awesome. And the story of Superstars 2.0, why I developed the program. For years, people kept getting their license and saying, Chris, now what do I do? And so this is just explaining what that program's about. It's a beautiful piece. Well, guys, this is the school marketing and advertising, right? But if I look at the entire thing, look what happens. It says, for more, click here, or learn more, or wherever I drive the consumer. Well, guess what? It brings you to this page, the one we looked at earlier, the Superstars landing page on our website. And guess what? All of that information, address, phone number. Remember, we're a school. It's a little bit different. And then all of this stuff is there. So what's the rule? One click away. So that's one click away, because where I drive you to the website, that information exists. And also on the profile for the school itself, all of that information exists. Look, in the About section, we actually have regulatory information. So that, therefore, any license numbers, any disclosures, any of that information we're required to have, our address, our phone number, it's in the About section. And guys, our school, the way our business page works is no different than how your business page works. So I want you guys to understand that by putting it in the About section, you're in compliance. Does everybody follow that? Hopefully you guys that are watching, if you follow that, give me a like. Let me know. Let me make sure that you understand that you know that's how you do this. That's what you do. So wherever you're leading people, okay, wherever you're leading them, you just want to make sure that in the profile of the social page and also wherever you click and wherever you bring them, that information exists. That's the key. That's the magic. That's how you stay compliant. And so in review, guys, let's make sure that we understand what's going on here. In Louisiana, if you're a real estate broker or a real estate agent, starting on June 1st, the advertising rules are staying the same, but the way our real estate commission is enforcing them is dramatically being increased. It's going from a $75 fine for a first offense to $250. It's going from a $150 fine for a second offense to $500. Third offense, $1,000. And then the big one is the broker match. So if I mess up, my broker also has to pay a fine, and that gets real expensive. And the reason for that is, guys, again, because Louisiana is trying to make sure that the brokers are responsible in understanding that just because folks are independent contractors does not mean that eliminates the broker's liability. It's a common misconception. There's been some court cases which have been litigated out there, and basically it's important to understand if you're a broker, you're responsible on some degree for the actions of your sales staff, your sponsored licensees. So if they go out there and produce an advertisement, it violates the advertising rules, you may be responsible for that fine as well. So I would encourage all brokers out there watching between now and June 1st, have a sales meeting, bring in your sales staff, bring in all of your agents, go over the advertising rules, and make sure that everybody's on board and understands what the rules are and what's going to happen if they're violated in your individual company. So this document that I was referring to earlier, these advertising guidelines, I want you guys to understand that if you're watching, and even later we'll put up the link, you can get this right off of Donaldson's website, free of charge, to give you guys a resource that you can use. It's an advertising guidelines checklist. So if you go to our website, www.donaldsoneducation.com for the school, www.donaldsoneducation.com, and you click on blog, it's probably going to take a minute because I'm also broadcasting live here. Right here, the first blog post, we have it front and center, is a blog post explaining the details of these advertising fines. If you scroll to the bottom, you'll see advertising guidelines checklist. It's a free download. I highly encourage each and every one of you. We'll put the link below for the replay. Download this thing, have it available, use it, remind yourself of the rules, go through the checklist, and make sure that you stay out of trouble. If you're a broker, a manager, a trainer, a team leader, somebody in that capacity where you're responsible for looking after others, then I highly encourage you refresh yourself on these rules, and then also have a meeting. Get your team together. Talk about this because it's coming June 1st. There's been warnings. There's been time. This is our last ditch effort to get everybody compliant before the fines, these big fines, these expensive fines may be coming in the mail. All right. So at this point, guys, we're at about halfway. So real quick, I just want to thank everybody who's tuned in, everybody who's watching live. And I want to remind you guys that anytime, if you've got questions, if you've got follow-up, in the comments right here is the best place to post those. Q&A is the reason we do this show live. So if you guys have a question, a curiosity, something you want me to cover, something you want to talk about, right below in the comments, go ahead and post that. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you want to talk about, and we'll go ahead and answer those. That's why we do the show live. If you're watching the replay, have no fear. Obviously, if you put a comment, we'll still see them, or you can always contact me through social media, through Facebook, or you can always email me, chris@christalks.com. So as a quick recap, my name is Chris Donaldson. This show is called Office Hours. The purpose of this show is to offer value to you, the real estate community, my agents, my brokers, my brethren, the people who are out there hustling and making a difference for their clients. I want to make sure that we have a place where we can talk about the issues of the day, discuss what's going on, and help you guys succeed in your business. So make sure, if you're watching the show, if you like the show, if you're a regular on the show, make sure, of course, to like this video, share it with your staff, share it with your other agents, share it with your office. Make sure everybody gets on board, especially this one, because it's incredibly important what's going on. And I want everybody to stay the heck out of trouble. All right? So as a bonus round here, I want to show you guys a couple of quick tips. And those of you, I know, Mike, Malachi, thanks for hanging in there, guys. It's really good to see y'all. So you're going to get rewarded here with a couple of bonus tips, which is really a reminder. And what I want you guys to understand is, as a reminder, this is your digital universe. If we're going to get real simple, this is your digital universe as a real estate salesperson. And so what that means is, what I want you guys to understand is that you need to make sure that in your digital world that you've got a website and you've got a Facebook business page. And you guys that went through my Superstars training, you know how much we preach this. Yes, it's 2017. You need to have a web presence. Yeah, it's 2017. You need to have a Facebook account. And then you need to have a Facebook business page where you can take advantage of the advertising and stay legal and literally understand that you're running a business. But the reason I want to show these two pillars, for those of you that maybe haven't seen them before, as a bonus, to remind you that everything, when you're advertising online, everything that you're doing, you should be driving your audience, ideally, back to one of those two places. Everybody follow what I'm saying? Ideally, you need to be driving traffic. If you put out a marketing piece on Facebook, on Twitter, by email, okay, whatever the case may be, the goal in the digital universe should be to be driving that traffic back to a place that you control. I want to make sure that everybody understands that, because there's a couple of reasons. Number one, what in the heck is the point of producing a marketing piece where you send somebody elsewhere that you don't control? Here's one of the big errors that I see all the time. All the time. I see agents post their new listings and they're putting them out there in the space and they're marketing. Sometimes they're even putting money behind the advertisement. And then when you click on it, it goes to the generic MLS listing. Like, just in the MLS, there's my listing. Well, not that that's a terrible thing. Somebody's going to see the listing. Maybe they'll make an appointment to see it. But the actual digital traffic created, you just passed it on over to the IDX feed, to the MLS board, to wherever, rather than maybe driving them for more information to your Facebook business page or to your broker's page where they have the IDX feed. Now, depending on where you watch this video, every state and every MLS board has their own rules. So let me just disclaimer, because I'm no idiot. I know what goes on out there. Some states and some areas, agents are allowed to have an IDX feed or some sort of MLS feed. Some states, there's only brokers. Some areas like Louisiana, agents can't necessarily have an IDX feed. So what that means is you need to think more creatively. When you market, when you advertise, when you set up, if you are going to literally put out a piece to drive traffic to your new listing, drive them somewhere you control. Then you can send them to the MLS or to Realtor.com or to Zillow. I don't care where you send them. Does everybody follow that? Keep them in your ecosystem for a click, then send them somewhere else. Number one, that's a really, really good idea as far as marketing and advertising is concerned. because when you have a chance to collect their email address, you have a chance to remarket to them, you have a chance to collect them and put them in your database, right? When they go to your Facebook business page or they go to your website, you can collect their information. You fire them off to the MLS, you may never see them again. So let's review. You put together a great Facebook ad, you actually get the consumer to click, and then you send them and you fire them off. That's like somebody calling the phone at your office and you sending them down the street. Makes no sense. You want them in the door. Come to me. Let me help you. So I want you guys to understand, Malachi, thanks for the admit. A lot of people do that. And what you want to be thinking about is make sure that when they click, number one, for a compliance reason, when they click, are they going to get somewhere where your compliance information is listed? That's number one. And then number two, controlled traffic. Controlled traffic. Believe me, every time you click or look at anything that we do, the goal, it's just a professional marketing thing. It's that when you click, I have a plan on where I want you to go. And then I have a plan of what I plan to do with that traffic. This video included. So make sure that you guys understand whenever you go through the trouble of marketing and advertising, make sure you know where the consumer is going. Okay? Mike, let me get to your question. So if you're trying to drive business to get a particular result, like to your page, that advertisement doesn't need to have the broker info. Okay. Again, that's a great question, Mike. Thanks for asking. And that's a compliance question. And so what I want you guys to understand is what he's asking about is to stay legal in Louisiana, to not get a fine. So the actual post itself. So let's get out of Facebook. Let's say it's Craigslist. Is Craigslist social media or is that digital? You darn right it is. Craigslist is a haven for regulatory violations. And I don't want this to ever happen to anybody, but if an investigator at the commission just wanted to dive into Craigslist, whoo, man, God bless them, because that is the wild, wild west. Because there's a lot of non-licensed people out there doing all sorts of things too. But there's, for some reason, when a site is free like Craigslist, I think that licensed agents and professionals think, oh, well, I can just do whatever I want. That is not the case whatsoever. So if you were to post an ad on Craigslist, now, depending on how the post looks, it's probably a good idea to have that compliance information in there, okay, in the actual ad or in the place. But like Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, the ad itself does not need to have the compliance. But when the consumer clicks on it, wherever they go, needs to have that compliance information. So, Mike, when you're talking about driving business from Facebook, let's talk specifically. You don't have to have all that junk in the Facebook ad. Now, you could. That's what we call over-disclosure, right? That's being extra safe. I've seen people do that. It's not necessarily wrong. Don't misunderstand. But if I have all of that regulatory information in my Facebook profile and where I send the consumer when they click, where I send them, if it's in my control, has that information, that's one click away, then I am compliant with the LREC's rules. So, Mike, hopefully that makes sense. Let me know in the comments. It's over here on this screen. So, Mike, let me know that makes sense. And so you can put it in the ad itself. But if you want to stay compliant in social media, for now, our regulatory body in Louisiana has said one click away. But guys, look, the real truth here is you do the best you can. You try to stay compliant. You put the information everywhere that it's supposed to be. Make sure it's on your website. Make sure it's on all your social profiles. Make sure it's anywhere in your digital universe. And generally, you're going to be safe. But the biggest thing I want everybody to understand is to go to donaldsoneducation.com, download this advertising guidelines checklist that's produced by the Real Estate Commission. And for a short period of time, no matter how long you've been working, whether you're brand new or you're experienced, I really want to see everybody. I want to see you get this guide and check it before you produce new advertisements. It's just a good habit to get into. It's a good guide, and there's no catch, guys. You just go to donaldsoneducation.com, click on the blog, click on the article about these rules. It's a free download, and I want you guys to have this on hand so that you can remind yourself, what are these rules that I have to follow so that you can stay out of trouble. So that's the biggest thing. I want you guys to have great marketing, and also stay out of trouble. Great marketing and stay out of trouble. So that's the big thing. So as far as best practices, hopefully this has helped you guys understand there's a regulatory change coming. The way that they're enforcing the rules on advertising violations is changing here in my home state of Louisiana on June 1st. I want you guys to stay out of trouble. I think you can have great marketing and also stay compliant. And the simplicity of it is make sure your ads have what they're supposed to have. Make sure your broker's name is clear and concise on everything, from your for sale signs to your business cards. Make sure your broker's office phone number is on everything, right? Make sure you have the date on any printed materials like flyers. And then all of this digital stuff, make sure that on your website, your compliance info is on every freaking page, and then your one click away policy. And one of the best ways to do that is to put it in the social profile of each and every one of your social networks. So guys, unless there's any more questions, that's the content that I wanted to make sure I covered with you guys tonight. That's what I wanted to make sure that you guys had. So as a reminder, this video will live both on my YouTube channel and right here on Facebook, even after the live broadcast. So share this with your friends, share this with fellow agents, heck, share this with your broker, okay? And make sure that they go over this stuff. And if you have any questions, any concerns, anything that I can help you with, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm a fellow practitioner, and I'm here to help you. You can always email me, chris@christalks.com. chris@christalks.com. Again, the replay will live on YouTube/Chris Donaldson TV. This is Chris Donaldson HQ, and you have been watching Office Hours. We will be back next week, 2 weeks in a row, same time, same place. And next week's show is going to be a big one. So don't miss it, because there's going to be special offers and really important stuff that only live viewers will get. So we'll see you back on Office Hours next week. Thank you so much for watching. Y'all have a great